Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Boring AFC. If you love pragmatic football and 1-0 wins, this is a place for you. We are an Arsenal fan YouTube channel. Um, if that's not you, you're also welcome. And rival fans, you're welcome to give us jip in the comments as well. All are welcome here. We're up for debates and we're up for, I don't know, difficult conversations. I'm recording this on Wednesday, so it's been a couple of days since the Sunderland game, but I am recording it after the Tottenham game yesterday, where they lost again, this time to Newcastle 2-1. They don't live rent free in my head, but I was doing my maths this morning, and what I realised was that if Arsenal are capable or able to win the next three games and take 9 from 9, including three in the North London derby at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, then if my maths is correct, that will also be St. Totteringham's Day. So, what better way to finish the next week or so with 9 points and St. Totteringham's Day at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? I can't think of much better things. So, I'm hopeful that we can take 9 from 9, but we will get to that. Let's talk about Sunderland. I know I'm a little bit late. Things have been busy the last couple of days, but there was no new 1-0 win. So we are still stuck on five 1-0 Premier League wins this season. Instead, the team showed up with a very professional, I think, 3-0 win over, oh my gosh, my name's gone, over Sunderland. And I don't really think that, although Sunderland were quite interesting in the way that they tried to set up, they played different than we've seen them. They played four at the back as opposed to five. And they tried to come at Arsenal. As we spoke about in the previous video, if you come for Arsenal, you will get beaten. If you sit back against Arsenal, you will get beaten. So once again, this is the Boring AFC. I'm looking to get to 50 subscribers. I'm currently on 5. Thank you to everyone that has done that so far. If you're here, please like, please subscribe. It helps the page grow. And I can get to do some live streams, which is ultimately what I want to be doing here. Okay, so let's talk about the game. The game actually started off quite fast for Arsenal. Within the first minute, Havertz could have scored a header, which Trossard came over from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, put a ball in, and Havertz should have done better, really. But after that, the game really, really slowed down, and you could see that Sunderland's game plan was coming into full effect, and they did a really good job. But you could really see that the person who was having the most joy going forward was Trossard, and Trossard's been incredible this season so far. He had a slight dip just before and slightly after Christmas, but otherwise he's been probably our best attacker on the left. And you could see before even Zubimendi's goal went in, you could see that he was trying to set up for that ball to the spare midfielder and the ball across into the far side. You saw that with Declan Rice's effort, which was whiskers away, and then you saw it eventually work out for Zubimendi. And just wow. The ball from Trossard was good anyway. It was perfectly weighted, but the way that Zubimendi struck it with the outside of his foot and curled it into the near post to beat the goalkeeper, the inside of the post, it was a wonderful strike. And he's showing just how important he is to this club. And that's why actually this week the video is called Zubi and the Finishers, which sounds like a kind of like a cheesy cover band, but it was really the Zubimendi and the Finishers show this week, and you could see that. And then you had Gyökeres, the finisher, not only finishing the game but finishing some lovely strikes to score 2 goals from the bench. What great form he is in. And it just goes to show that, when Arteta was talking about, I don't have subs, I have starters and finishers. You can see how, that's a really important part of the mindset in terms of setting up Arsenal to be a competitive and strong team on both fronts, as a starting 11 and as a finishing 11. And I kind of respect that Arteta has taken that approach, because it makes everyone feel validated and important, and that they can contribute to the team. If it's not for Norgard, who's played so few minutes, coming off the bench to put a ball to Martinelli for one of his characteristic runs, also a finisher, to Gyökeres, who is also a finisher. Like it just couldn't be better written, and it just shows how valuable Arsenal squad depth is, and it shows why we should be believing that they are favourites and that they can win this title, regardless of what Man City did at Liverpool. Let's not forget that Man City game was pretty shocking for 80 minutes. It was only in the last 10 minutes and then the added time that things started to happen. Man City have a mental victory at Liverpool, but in terms of the rest of the season, they are not better than Arsenal. And Arsenal should be winning this league and must win this league, in my opinion. It was a confident, well-managed performance. And, I think what's also really important to acknowledge here is that there was no set-piece goals, sadly. All right. We're not getting for those of you who are triple captaining this week for Brentford and Wolves, we didn't get the big Gabs goal this week. But I think it again shows there's a lot of criticism about Arteta and the style of football, that it's too one-dimensional. We rely too much on crosses and we rely too much on set pieces, sorry. Arsenal has shown a different dynamic. Arsenal has shown that they can play to who is in front of them and they can change their game to whoever is in front of them. And if that doesn't show versatility, I don't know what does. I don't know what else Arteta has to do to be able to demonstrate that he is the man to continue managing this club. Because every time that there is a difference, Sunderland's problem maybe surprised us a little bit at the weekend. We managed to change. We changed our game against Leeds. We changed our game against Chelsea. We are able to hold a team when they're doing the low block, and we're able to break through a team when they play. And if so, and the corners come, we are able to capitalise them. This team is fully rounded, and they're becoming, even at still relatively, they're not in their peak, a lot of these players, playing really mature and experienced football. And I think that's so important. I'm going to talk about some of the general things here. Hincapié and Calafiori. So Calafiori started the game. You could really see how rusty he was. You could see that he's playing for form. He's trying to get back into things. Lots of misplaced passes, kind of getting a little bit lost when he was attacking. And you could see how much more assured we were when Hincapié came on. And that's part of the reason why I think Hincapié will probably start against Brentford, another team who are in really good form. There's no doubt that they are both going to be so important for the running, but you could see that Calafiori was a little bit flustered, a little bit out of his depth on the day, and how much better the team was when Hincapié came on. So I think it's really good that we've got two really good left backs. And, hopefully that means that Miles Lewis-Skelly will play more in the midfield now. But you can see that at the moment it has to be Hincapié who is the starter. Rice just did Rice throughout the whole game, up and down, driving the team forward in the first minute and in the last minute. What an amazing engine he has. And I love that he's assuming a leadership role. He's not being a captain. He's just leading his teammates. Even when Eze came on in the last minutes of the game, trying to hold on to a 3-0 win, he's driving in, he's coaching him. And he is so important to the team. And, he's the type of player that if Arsenal do go on to win trophies this year, he's got to be in the conversation for Player of the Year. He has been so, so good. But where Rice might be Player of the Year, you might also then have to look at his partner Zubimendi and say that he's the signing of the season. We've heard people talk about Ekitike, for example, at Liverpool at times, and other players, but none of those players, not one of them, is coming close to the impact that Zubimendi has had at Arsenal. When we lost Partey, or when Partey left, his contract was finished. There was a lot of concern, I think, within the fan base about what type of midfielder was going to come in. Was he going to hit the ground running? And actually, in his first game, he got bullied a little bit against United away. But since that time, you can see just how well he's adapted, how well he can link up play. And I love the fact that it almost pulls Rice back a little bit from his 8 position. And Zubi and Rice kind of interchange and lead the games at different points going forward, which in this case allows Havertz to be freed up and just play. So, I'll talk more about that later, but I think Zubimendi has got to be up for signing the season. I've already spoken about Trossard. I think the debate we need to be having as well then is what do we do about the right? Do we continue to play Madueke on the right? Or based on recent performances, do we play Martinelli on the right? I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know what you guys think, because I don't think Madueke has found his Arsenal form yet, but I don't think he's. You can see that a bit like with Gyökeres when he was working it out. You can see that there's a real willingness to be successful. He almost sacrifices a lot of his game for the team sometimes, I think, because he pulls out so far to the right to create space, which often takes him out of the game. When he gets the ball, there's no doubt that he's so good going forward and he get into the box. And he's the type of player that would be really good for finding Gyökeres, actually. Um, but I don't know whether Timber is the right partner for him, and that's obviously not suggesting that Timber should be dropped, but I wonder whether Timber is the right partner for him. And the reason why I say that is I think of early Saka, before Saka became a little bit more tippy-tappy, a little bit more mindful. His partner, he had like a perfect partnership with Ben White, and I wonder whether, with the games coming up and the amount of games coming up, whether Ben White might be a good person to play with Madueke, but also to free up some of Timber's playing time. And it's probably more likely something that we will see against Wigan at the weekend. But I think that I'm okay with either of them starting, but I really do think we have to get the Brentford lineup right. I think maybe you could be probably a little bit more creative against Wolves, but with Brentford, they are in really good form. They've just won 2 games back to back where you would not have picked them to win those games. Once again, Aston Villa, and then against Newcastle. They're going to be really wanting to upset Arsenal, and I don't think they've really done anything against Arsenal since they were promoted, and they had those tweets where it's like a nice little kick around. So I think there's a lot riding on that game. But let's do some deep dives. I'm going to talk about Havertz. I'm biased because I know that some people are not necessarily the biggest fans of Havertz, but for me, I think Havertz is in the top 3 or 4 players at the club. I think he's that good. I think he is that important. I personally think he made the team purr, and the reason why I think he did that was because it was almost like he had the freedom at Ozil, but with the willingness to press. And I'm not trying to compare him as a footballer to Ozil. I'm not that naive, but I think he had that freedom. But with that freedom, he also had the responsibility to back up the press and really push. And because of that, it meant that he was closer to Gyökeres. And I think that when Gyökeres came on, you could really see the benefit of him having someone playing so close to him. And I think that's the issue that we have with Odegaard at the moment. And Odegaard, bless him, he's had 4 injuries this year. He's not in form, but he is improving. You could see that when he came on against Leeds. But I think having Havertz push and have the freedom to kind of roam about, to be close to the striker, means that you almost have a 4 in midfield, with Zubimendi and Rice constantly switching and changing, a bit like what we had in the old days with Petit and Vieira, and then Vieira and Gilberto, that kind of willingness to switch. But it just means that Havertz can be wherever Gyökeres needs him to be. And you saw that with Gyökeres' first goal and Havertz's assist. So I think in that respect, it would be really interesting to see more starts going forward with Havertz and Gyökeres. And let's not forget, he got the assist, but he also nearly scored twice himself, both in the first half. One of them, the header, he should have done better. And if he'd scored the second, it would have been a masterstroke, because he carried the ball, which is the type of thing we don't really see enough from Arsenal midfielders anymore, with the exception of maybe Rice. We'd love to see our wingers carrying the ball a little bit more directly, but he carried the ball directly from just inside the halfway line, and then he had a lovely left-footed shot that wasn't too far from the post. So, I think that he's got that. And he nearly assisted Jesus. It's one of those ones where you're kind of like, oh, where'd you draw the line here? I get it, his body was off, but his feet were inside the line. So there's a lot of debate about that. But he nearly assisted Jesus, or for the penalty in the first half too. So he was everywhere. He was active. He was dynamic. And let's not forget that he was in the right place at the right time. Whether you thought it was going wide or not, he was in the right place at the right time when Raya fluffed his lines, and I think it was Ballard who put him off, and they nearly scored from that corner, but it was Havertz there. And I just think he has so much responsibility. He is a leader within the team. He's not a captain, but he's a leader. And I think that the way that he plays demonstrates the willingness he has to sacrifice for the club, but the creativity that he brings to the pitch as well. He brings a greater pace to the game, and I think that's why we have to be having that discussion about who do we play with Gyökeres. And at the moment, you have to be saying that Havertz is a starter. And I also believe that regardless of when Odegaard comes back and if Odegaard plays, I believe that one of the first questions that Arteta will be asking himself is, where do I play Havertz this week? Because Havertz is the type of player that has to play, clearly, for me. Let's move on to Yoko. I've spoken a little bit about Gyökeres. He's the most informed striker in 2026 in the Premier League with 6 goals and 2 assists. I couldn't be happier. I remember watching him in his first game against Man United and thinking, what is going on here? He looked clunky, he looked slow, he looked mechanical. He didn't look as strong as what was said to us. I can remember him getting pushed over outside the penalty box and thinking, what was that, mate? You're meant to be holding the ball up. But I've always wanted him to succeed. Like any player, sometimes it just gets to the point where they can't. But with Gyökeres, I really do believe that he can succeed. And I think that maybe Arsenal are finding a way to play with him in the team, because we have to understand that he's not necessarily going to be a ball runner like a Jesus. He's not going to do that for us, or like a Havertz. He is a one-touch striker. He is a striker that sees the goal and shoots, and he gets goals. And to caveat that, I remember a quote from Haaland where people was when a couple of seasons ago, where Haaland scored all those goals, and in one game he had like 5 touches and scored a hat-trick. And he said something like, "That's great, but I'd love to have 3 touches and score a hat-trick." And I appreciate that mentality, this kind of one-touch finish, this clinical, surgical, destructive finishing that he can bring. You know, if you look at his first shot, he was falling and he hit that ball so hard it was like a bullet. And the second one was a kind of the poacher's fox in the box goal. It was a lovely assist from Martinelli, but you know, he showed 2 different types to his games there, that he can thunder crack a ball, but he can also be in the right place at the right time, and with minimal touches. And I'm okay with that, because I think that there's enough around him to be able to do that work for him. He's just got to get in the right place. And there was a lot of criticism that he wasn't getting into the right places. Well, of course he wasn't getting into the right places. He had to drop short, and he's not fast enough to then spin and then be in the right place once he's dropped short. Although his run next to Martinelli was pretty impressive, I think. He's also scoring against teams that we were dropping points against last season. So these newly promoted lower table teams, he is scoring goals against. And those were where we dropped points last season, that formidable low block that was just impossible to break down. And he is scoring those goals. So in terms of the hole that he's filling, he's doing that job. And I think we can't be too hypercritical of that. Not yet. You know, I think he's on 13 goals across the whole season so far. If he gets to 20 goals this season, that's not a bad debut season. I'm pretty sure it's more than Henry's debut season. So I think that we need to enjoy this moment, because I think this could be the moment where Gyökeres really starts to find his feet, and impacting from the bench will only build his confidence, because nobody wants to be dropped. But knowing that you came on and you made a difference and you made the game look easier than it was, I think is going to be a massive thing to him. And I hope he starts against Brentford on Thursday with Havertz behind him, because I think that those two could really, really punish Brentford if they do try and play as you would expect them to. Trossard, incredible game on the left, and he's rightfully keeping Nelly and Eze out of the team. I just think there was almost something Cazorla-esque about him. He was linking up, he's dropping back. So as much as we bought him as this incredible, bargain really from Brighton, he's also still improving his game. Like, he's able to drop back into midfield and help with the defending, but he's also creating so much going forward. And I just think that if Arsenal are successful this season, we need to look at the work that Trossard done, because we're going to be celebrating the top goal scorer, whoever that is at the moment, probably Gyökeres. We're going to be celebrating Rice. We're going to be celebrating Zubimendi, Gabriel, those types of players, right? But I also really do think that Trossard is the type of player that is slightly underappreciated by Arsenal fans. And, since he joined Arsenal, he's got 26 goals and 22 assists. And those goals, he hasn't just scored goals where we've been winning. And he's just added. He's scored decisive goals. He scored in one of our 1-0 wins this season. I can't remember which team, but we've had 5 1-0 wins this season, and he scored in one of them. And that's 3 points that we wouldn't have had. So I think that Trossard deserves some flowers from us Arsenal fans as well. So big up to Havertz, Gyökeres, and Trossard. I'd also be interested to see to hear who your Arsenal standout players are so far this season, because there are so many that we can celebrate, and I think sometimes there are the people who just do what their job is, but it doesn't necessarily get the headlines. So if you look at someone like Timber, for example, he might be your player of the season for Arsenal, and that would be completely justified. I've already spoken a little bit about starters and finishers. You can see that Arteta set out with a game plan, but then almost every substitute he made had an impact. Hincapié shored up the defence when Calafiori was kind of flacking. Norgard comes on and he passes the ball to Martinelli, who passes the ball to Gyökeres, who then scores a goal, and we win 3-0. So I think that we had so much depth and so much quality that we could control the team for 70 minutes, be 1-0 up, 2-0 up, whatever it is, and then bring on finishers and absolutely blitz the team and just destroy all of their resolve, which is the type of thing that you could imagine happening against Brentford on Thursday. I've already spoke about St Totteringham's Day, but I've got there's some other numbers here as well. If Man City do beat Fulham tonight, as you would expect them to do, Arsenal will be 3 points clear, and it will be this kind of whole humdrum in the media of 3 points, it's down to 3 points. It's not 3 points. I think we need to start looking at these numbers at the end of the game week. People were saying that Arsenal's 9-point lead was slashed by Man City. It wasn't. The game week wasn't over. We need to start looking at these numbers at the end of the game week, in my personal opinion. So yes, it could be 3 points by tomorrow, but we need to be looking at, for me anyway, at the end of the game week, which for us ends against Wolves when we have our double header. And by the end of that game week, Arsenal could be 9 points clear. Yes, Man City would have a game in hand, but as Ferguson would always say, I'd rather have the points on the table, right? So if Arsenal can win those next 2 games, they would be 9 points clear. I'm not sure who plays first at the weekend after that. But then we have Tottenham after that, and we have the potential for St Totteringham's Day. So I'm not really interested in these numbers until the end of the game week. Yes, it could be 3 points by tomorrow, but by the end of the game week, it could be back up to 9. And Man City have got to win their game in hand to be competing with us. So I'm not stressing too much. I think we've got enough to beat all 3 of those teams and take 9 from 9. There are, of course, potential slip-ups along the way. I do think Brentford is probably our second hardest game left, alongside Man City. Brentford are in good form, and they're very good on the break. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to move on from the Sunderland game. One of the features that we have on this channel is famous 1-0 wins, because we are boring AFC. So this one, I'm taking us back to 2003. Make sure that you Google this, because it is just another one of those goals where it's a little bit of a shabby goal, if we're being honest with ourselves. A bit like the one with Will Todd last week. This one also involves Ljungberg. It was the FA Cup final where Bergkamp passed to Lindbergh to Perez, and we had an Arsenal 1-0 victory. In the FA Cup, it was also that we were also the first club to retain it since Spurs did nearly a quarter of a century before. So it was nice to kind of shut down that Spurs record in the process as well. But yes, it was a boring 1-0 win. It was another shabby goal-mouth goal with a poacher in the right place at the right time. And Arsenal retained the FA Cup and has part of the journey to Arsenal becoming the most decorated FA Cup team in history. So make sure you Google that and have a check out of it on YouTube. So looking ahead to Brentford, I've already said that this is probably going to be our second most challenging game before the end of the season, the other one being City, because City are going to want to really put a stamp on their game at the Etihad. I think Brentford will come at Arsenal like Leeds did and Sunderland did. And I think this will play in our favour because as it did with Leeds and Sunderland, they came at us and we just kind of absorbed the pressure and then played through them. And this is why I think having someone like Havertz on the pitch will be so important. You'll have Rice and Zubimendi doing their lovely little double pivot. Who goes? You go this time. And you'll just have Havertz having the best time ever, free flowing around. You'll have Gyökeres not moving in the middle. And I think that Arsenal will score goals. I think that with the way the defence are right now, I don't think Brentford will score. I think they could, obviously, because Thiago is in such good form. But I just think Arsenal are better. And I think Arsenal are better in every department. So I think it's going to be a 2-0 win. And my lineup is going to be Raya, Timber, Gabs, Saliba, Hincapié. I think Hincapié has to come back in. Defensively, I think, offensively, I think Brentford are really good. And I think that Calafiori is more suited for a Wigan game right now, just to kind of find his form. I think Hincapié for the defensive capabilities. Zubi, Rice, Trossard. I'm going to go with Nelly, but I wouldn't be upset if Madueke started. I like the fact that Nelly can come on and have that blitzing pace finish. So it doesn't matter to me. And then Havertz and Gyökeres. I think that's a starting 11. I think that's a starting 11 that will beat, nullify, and just break the resolve of Brentford. And we will take a 2-0 win into our game against Wolves next week, and then into our game against Tottenham on the weekend after that. But what are your score predictions? Do you think the lineup's right? Do you think Arsenal will be as comfortable as 2-0? Or will I get a 6-1-0 to add to the 1-0 chart for the Premier League this season? As always, I've just started out. Thank you for watching. If you've got this far, I would love to get to 50 subscribers so I can stream live. That is the ultimate goal. So please like and please subscribe. And hopefully the next time I see you, we'll be sitting nice and pretty with lots of points clear at the top of the table. See you next time.